Hello everyone and welcome back to the Matthew Schreiner podcast, and in today's episode we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be looking at an interview with Ben Shapiro and Matt Fradd from Pints of Aquinas, and we're going to be looking at this debate, that Matt and Ben had, and we're going to be looking at it. And so this is in regards to Judaism. The question being, why do Jews not convert people? So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at Ben's reasoning, and I'm going to kind of add on my own 2 cents to kind of why Ben's Judaism is something uncompelling and possibly even false, you might say. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to have the debate open here. I'm going to play through it, and I will stop occasionally to add in my 2 cents.
I have another question for you. Why don't you want me to be a Jew or do you?
I don't care. So why? Because
I want you to be Catholic.
Right. No, and by the way, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is what I've always said to my Catholic friends, my Protestant friends.
Yeah.
As long as you're coming into the book and that sword, right?
They're not being annoying and just berating you.
So before I get started actually looking at this video, I wanted to preface it with something. Well, what should we as Catholics and as Christians believe about Judaism? And simply what we should believe is that Judaism, modern Judaism, is false. Orthodox Judaism, Rabbinic Judaism is false because we believe that as Christians and as Catholics, the church, the Catholic Church, the Christian religion is a fulfillment of Judaism, is a fulfillment of the Messianic prophecies, that Christ is a fulfillment of those prophecies, and he left us with this. So nowadays, anyone is welcome to join the church, not just Jews. This is the whole debate between Paul and Peter. And so we as Christians believe we are the fulfillment of Judaism, and that Judaism, the laws, they were fulfilled in Christ, so we are no longer bound by the laws of Judaism. So that's just what I wanted to preface that with, and we're going to talk a little bit more about why modern Judaism, especially as Ben presents it here, is false and uncompelling.
I have another question for you. Why don't you want me to be a Jew, or do you?
I don't care.
Yeah,
so
why?
Why? Because
I want you to be Catholic, obviously.
Right, no, and by the way, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I've always said to my Catholic friends, my Protestant friends.
Yeah.
As long as you're coming at me with a book and not a sword, that's great.
And they're not being annoying and
exactly.
Berating you or something like that.
I mean, even if you want to be annoying about it, that's fine. Like, you care enough about my soul that you want me to be saved. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's much appreciated, and we'll find out in the overtime period who is right and who is wrong.
So I want you to, the thing I wanted to stop here and point out was Ben's attitude, mostly about evangelization. It doesn't matter. We'll figure out at the end of time who's right. And so my problem with that is that, well, what if Christianity is right, and at the end of time, or at the end of life, there is a God, there is Jesus, and he did give judgment for our soul, and we didn't believe and do what he taught us. And that goes back to the question of who is Jesus, which I discussed previously in the Practical Atheism episode, and I discussed Peter's confession of Jesus. And now, what if Hinduism is right, and Hinduism believes in reincarnation? What if Hinduism is right and we just reincarnate? We did so bad in this life, from whatever point of view, that we just get reborn as some terrible animal. Or what if we did very great in life, So my point being, what is the best and most compelling truth? And that is what matters. What is the best and most compelling truth? So that's why it matters to evangelize, because we believe it's true. We believe it's true. Like you said, I'm glad they care about my soul. But if they care so much about our soul, should we kind of like take the prompting? What if this is true? Why is it that they do this? So that's kind of my thing with that.
But why don't you? Because we talked about earlier about the only reason you should believe something is because it's true.
Right.
You presumably believe I believe falsehoods and you believe true things. So why shouldn't you encourage me to abandon some of my beliefs and adopt some of yours?
Right. So doctrinally, what Judaism believes is that the commandments of Israel were only given to Israel.
Okay.
Meaning that the 7 Noahide commandments that I referred to earlier, those are incumbent on all of humanity because they're given to Noah, right, before the Jews actually arise as an independent family and people. Mm-hmm. And so those apply to everyone. So if you're not a member of the Judaic tribe, then those rules don't apply to you. So the 613 commandments that apply to me are boiled down to 7 for you. Mm-hmm. And so what that means is that if you want to join in to do those commandments, Like, that's not required of you. Like, sure, you welcome if you want, but certainly Judaism doesn't feel the necessity to force
to evangelize and to bring people
because
into
Judaism doesn't actually suggest being chosen doesn't mean being superior.
So Ben's argument is that Judaism, the reason that you don't have to become Jewish is that Judaism is a specific group of people. And so that's what differs Judaism from Christianity, is that the Jews believe they're the chosen people, that they're a certain tribe, which is obviously true if you read the Old Testament. The Jews were just in their region. They were just there. They were just doing their things, and they believed in this one God. They were separate. And so what God did was he wanted to separate these people. And that ultimately goes to why is Christianity the fulfillment of Judaism, because God made a group of people, the Jews, separate from the world, and then he brought in the Messiah, that is Christ. And from Christ now, anyone can be God's chosen, God's friend. Jesus says, now, I no longer call you friends, I no longer call you slaves, I call you friends. He wants us to all be brothers, and he wants us to all be sons of the Father. This was completely and radically different from what was taught at the time by the Jewish people. So that is what I want to talk about here, is that Ben says, well, God made only the Jewish people to do this, and the Jewish people are only a certain tribe, and they are the Jewish people. They're rather, much rather than a religion, they're an ethnic group. So it's kind of an ethnic group with a religion, not a religion. So like they're just that's kind of what it is. This is kind of what he believes in, is more of the Jewish people are a people, not a religion.
Right. I think this is one of the great misnomers of sort of history, is that when the Jews say that they're a chosen people, what they mean is that they're better than everyone else. And it's like, no, in the same way that if I choose my oldest child to take out the trash, that doesn't mean that my oldest child is better. It means I need my oldest child to take out the trash. Like, that's not the same thing.
Okay.
And so the sort of idea that Jews are, in their own minds, superior to everybody else because it is incumbent on them to do that, that's obviously not how Jews think, especially because there are a bunch of commandments that are incumbent on men in Judaism that are not incumbent on women in Judaism. Does Judaism then believe that women are of lesser value than men? I mean,
but apart from little laws, there must be like metaphysical things that you hold as true that you would like me to believe. Or at least you would like me. I don't mean to be confrontational, but you would clearly would want Christians to realize that Christ was not the Messiah, that he didn't write. Maybe you don't want that, or maybe it doesn't bother you. You don't care one way or the other.
Right. So the way.
But like when I look at Mormons, I'm like, look, I love you, and this isn't a criticism on you directly, but Joseph Smith was not a prophet. My Muslim friend, I love you, but like Muhammad was a liar or a lunatic. Maybe he was possessed, but he wasn't a prophet.
Right. So
I have to say that in love, and so I would wonder. And maybe it's just that you have a public platform, and so you don't want to get into that to offend people unnecessarily. But
it really isn't that. I mean, the Jewish doctrine is that as long as you believe in God, as long as the actual seven commandments to non-Jews are believe in God. No eating the flesh of living animals, actually one of them. You have to establish courts of law, no murder, no sexual sins, no idolatry, and I believe no stealing. It's like seven of the 10, of the big 10, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't actually believe that non-Jews are even bound by the 10 commandments, right? They're bound by the 7 commandments in Judaism.
Hey.
So it like boils even further down. So how you believe in God is of little consequence to me, so long as you do believe in the monotheistic God.
So Ben's point is, he doesn't care. Whatever you believe, you can believe in anything. Although he says that you have to follow these 7 commandments, so you have to believe in God and follow these 7 commandments. So it's kind of like you're not going to be Jewish. Like, we don't want you to be Jewish. We don't want you to follow the laws, but we want you to be Jewish, and we want you to follow these laws. It's kind of an odd thing. Like, he wants you to follow these rules and commandments, which kind of seem to fit in with Christianity. And we want you to be Jewish, but we don't want you to be Jewish. That's kind of what I feel like it is. We don't want you to follow the 10 commandments. We don't want you to follow the 630 commandments. We just want you to follow these 7. So,
what if I believe in a God that lives on top of a mountain and whose name is Jeffrey?
So if he doesn't,
and I say that's God,
and I believe fulfill the fundamental properties of God, then that doesn't count.
Which would be what?
So the fundamental properties of God would be that he's in charge of the universe, creator of the universe, master of the divine law, all powerful, all knowing, all loving would probably be in that category. there's debate in sort of Jewish circles as to whether you have to believe that God gave the commandments at Sinai, whether that's a debate between a couple of major rabbis, Maimonides included, as to whether if you discover those 7 laws on your own, but you don't believe that they were given at Sinai, does that count?
So his point is then that that the 7 laws can be found within nature. And this is an argument that goes back to the natural law. And I think that we can understand that naturally, most people do not come up with these 7 laws that Ben speaks of by natural law. I feel like we can see this in history, that most people don't have a belief in a monotheistic God simply by nature. They find belief in God and a divine person naturally. Granted, nowadays we have people who say, well, you can't find God naturally. The atheists will say you can't find God. But most people say, well, you can find God naturally, but not necessarily a monotheistic God, albeit most of the times there is usually in most myths and theologies predating modern times, there generally is one all-powerful God higher than all the others, but that's also generally, they have other gods alongside this one all-powerful God. So that's just my thing. And also the other natural laws I don't think necessarily can be found in by necessarily natural means, such as don't eat certain types of meat, which Ben talks about, or other things. I don't think that these can necessarily be found in nature, especially sexual morality. I don't think that things like that can be found naturally, albeit they can. And natural science can prove that these are beneficial and true, but I don't think necessarily by pure human instinct and pure, at least not for all humans, that they can necessarily be found true. I think that history can also prove that, and that's kind of what I try to lean towards too.
Right. So there is some doctrinal debate there, but in general, the basic idea that there is only one path to God in the same way that there is in Christianity.
I see.
That doesn't exist in the same way.
What about like a Mormon who believed that God was once a man like we are? Like, would you go, okay, I'm not saying you've given much thought about this, but would that be a place where you'd be like, no, I need to evangelize you, or not that word, but I need you to come to believe in God differently than you currently do?
So the answer to me is, I'm going to go with the I don't know answer. like pretty much everything.
You both
else.
get
Judaism,
3.
There's like major debate on all of these things. And there's a debate for a long time in Judaism over whether, say, Trinitarianism is monotheism or if it's not monotheism. Right? Like that's like that was a serious debate in Judaism. It's come down on the side of it's monotheism.
Okay.
So I wouldn't know the answer as far as, Mormon doctrine specifically. Let's put it this way. If you're talking about like paganism, Judaism would have a problem with paganism. So let's say that you believed that there were 100 gods and they all ruled over different aspects of humanity. Then Judaism would say that does not fulfill the 7.
And if you were in dialogue with somebody like this, would you feel obligated to try to help divest them of that error so that they could be saved?
Sure. I mean,
Cool.
So then I would feel obligated to actually, in the same way that if somebody believed that adultery was morally acceptable, I would feel the obligation to say, well, no, adultery is not morally acceptable, and it's better for you to not believe that.
So then I want to talk about the conclusion, which was, well, yes, there's certain things that we need to correct people on. Like, so if someone believes in adultery and that's right, then you have to correct them. Or if they believe in, I think the last example was paganism, we have to correct them. And Matt was talking about, well, if someone believed in Islam, should we correct them that Muhammad was not a real prophet? Or his other example that Ben didn't have an answer to was, and Ben said, well, Trinitarianism, that might not necessarily be monotheistic, but he said, in the end it is. But he said, I might not be able to say if Mormonism is monotheistic. And of course, most Christians agree that Mormonism is not Christian and that they don't believe in monotheism, or really they don't believe in the Trinity at all because of their differing theology of God and such. That's a different topic for a different day. But I think Ben's ultimate thing is, no, we don't need to convince people that Judaism is true. Judaism is a way revealed by God to a certain tribe only, not to a certain people, not a religion, but a tribe. So Judaism seems to be more of a tribal religion, but he says that we need to correct people when they have false ideas, especially of God and of morality. And so I believe that Judaism then only boils down to a tribal religion that tries to teach a morality, especially nowadays. Whereas Christianity, which claims to be the fulfillment of Judaism, and that's a debate for another time of, is Christianity truly the fulfillment of Judaism? Is Christ truly the Messiah? Which we're just going to say for now, yes, that our assumption is yes, Christianity is true, Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Then that renders Judaism false, because then it's for everyone. Everyone is called to be a part of God's promise. So that's my ultimate resolution, is that Judaism seeks to teach a false ideology. It doesn't fit with modern world religions, and that why don't they try and preach? Because there's no need to preach it. It was set up for a certain time period before Christ came, and that because Christ came, Judaism is no longer true. We have Christianity, and that is the way that God ultimately reveals. So that is my conclusion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I wanted to try something different. Thank you all for watching today, and I will see you next time. Have a blessed day. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Doing so helps us to spread this Catholic and Christian message to all. Please also consider supporting this channel on Patreon.